Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are moving on with season 6, now up to episode 8, The Rain King. Brian, we kind of alluded to this one the last time. We weren't too sure if this was going to be a great episode, a poor episode, something in the middle. I guess we'll find out. But yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't have that many memories of it, to be honest. And I think like one of the things I did remember about it, which turned out to be correct, is that it is another kind of comedy episode. And I think going back to when this first aired, that was kind of like the last straw for me as a fan. I felt like the move to LA, everything after the movie, it's like they were churning out these really great episodes.
Yeah.
But it felt like the tone of the show had completely changed. And I it kind of left me a bit sour, and yet I couldn't be too I couldn't be sour to the point where I was no longer a fan, because the episodes were still good. That's the thing. Do you care to guess where you think this episode sits on IMDb in the 217 episodes ranked?
This is probably like a no. Like it's a hard one. I would say I'm 146.
Okay. This is 165.
Right, okay. So the lower end of the
165. Yeah, very much in the lower end. Bottom quarter.
So this is like the lowest score of the season so far, then, or the lowest ranked episode, I think.
I think so. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, for me personally, again, not to give the game away, is a bit of a puzzler. Yeah. I definitely don't think this is the worst episode we've had so far this season, but it's certainly no Triangle or Dreamland either.
Okay, can we? Which episode, before we get into this, would you think is worse than this in the season so far?
I think both the beginning and Terms of Endearment are not quite as good as this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, Drive is probably the standout so far, and then Triangle and Dreamland parts 1 and 2 kind of on a par. But I mean, all 4 of them were just excellent episodes. Terms of Endearment, yeah, it's all right, kind of average. And the beginning, it's an okay mythology episode, but nothing special. So, right, okay, let's get into it. We start the episode, and it's Valentine's Day. We see this woman, Sheila, who's writing out a card for her fella, who comes home at that moment and basically treats her like crap. He sees the Valentine's Day chocolates, which she's kind of put out for him, I'm assuming, but he assumes she's just sat there eating them herself, and basically remarks, like, no wonder your ass is so fat, kind of, and he just does a bunk. So she's left in tears, and the more she cries, the more it starts to rain and starts to hailstone, and those hailstones get super large. And our man Daryl in the car, who just happens to be drinking beer as well, he crashes. As a result of the weather, or maybe the fact that he's just drunk at the wheel. And yeah, so I think we are to assume, therefore, especially given that the hailstone is shaped like hearts, that Sheila has caused this weather. She is responsible. So yeah, what do you think of that as an intro?
100%. I kind of like it. I like it. Again, it feels very. It's not over the top comedic, but it is definitely leaning towards comedic territory with the fact that she's so dressed up in red. She's got all the cards and blah blah blah. And he comes in like without any kind of romanticism at all. Absolutely raging that she's put the advertisement in the paper about their impending nuptials. He's just like, what's this? Like just barges by her, you've got a fat ass, and then I'm away. Like, what a charmer. An absolute charmer. But yeah, I thought it's heart as well when the ice is dropping down and it's all hearts. I thought it was a cool image. We've also got the song playing throughout the opening part here when you're driving the car. I can't remember which one it is, but it's it's alluding to love and the weather at the same time.
I like how he's singing it in the car.
Yeah.
Like she's listening to it all like sad and stuff, and it's making her cry even more. And
Mm.
he's just listening to it in the car, but he's like proper belting it out himself, like
Yeah. Yeah.
without
Yeah,
any kind
it's
of
a decent enough
romance.
opening.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so get past the opening credits, and Mulder and Scully arrive to a very warm welcome reception from the mayor of Krona, and
Yep.
some girl that he's dragged in to do like whatever it is you call it
Gymnastics
when
with
they
a baton or
when they're throwing a
big
baton
regrets.
around and stuff. Yeah, so who calls Scully the missus? I was like, I didn't know you were going to bring the missus, Agent Mulder. To which Scully's like instantly offended. But what I like about this moment is how he apologizes.
Yeah. Same.
Like he apologizes. This isn't a stupid man, you know. He's very much I just feel like this. So there's an episode, Too Shy, where the fat the guy who eats the fat, he dates the fat women so that he can eat them basically. And there's a bit in that when Scully shows up to the crime scene, and there was a detective there, douchebag detective, who really disrespects Scully because she's a woman. He has trouble with her throughout the episode because she's a woman. And it's like this mayor could have been that kind of douchebag, but I don't feel like he is. I just feel like he made an honest mistake, and then like he is very apologetic afterwards. But it's just his weird moment that didn't need to be there, but it is.
No,
and
I liked it.
Yeah, it kind of adds. It just adds something a little.
There's no prejudice there. It's just a different world he comes from, and he's made a faux pas, but he owns it. Like that. That ownership of a mistake is something that's endearing.
Yeah. It tells you something about him as a person, and perhaps the people in this town as well. They are, by the very definition, small town folk, but we shouldn't infer from that they are backwards. They're actually a kind-hearted small town folk. With the exception of Daryl, of course, who's the local douchebag. But so he tells them about Krona's crisis, which is this man Daryl from the beginning. Daryl Moots, who's making money off causing the drought so that he can charge for the rain that he brings. Yes, Daryl is now a rainmaker, a rain king, if you will. And Scully's face throughout all of this is classic Scully.
I think the best part is when the mayor's like, didn't Agent Mulder tell you about this? And you can almost see like Mulder shrinking back a little bit, just like, here we go.
Yeah. It just gives that facial expression where it's like, yep, it's okay. Don't go
I
on
think
about
it's these kind of moments that really elevate the series for me, because nothing's getting said. It's not in the script. It's all done with looks in the actors, where Mulder's like shrinking back and Scully's just looking at him as if to go, "You son of a."
And there's a lot of that in this episode.
Yes,
this episode is just full of those moments where, like, if you're watching this episode and not paying that much attention, you just got it on in the background, I don't think you'll appreciate it all that much, because so much of why this episode works for me is those quiet interactions where everything that's being said is being said through the eyes, through a look, through the body language, particularly between Mulder and Scully. But yeah. So Mulder and Scully go to Daryl's office, and Scully's basically taking the piss out of Mulder as they're walking up to it. She's been so super sarcastic about Mulder's kind of hopes of what he expects to get out of this case. There's a certain something that Scully says later on, but she says it so many times throughout the show, I think you could put like a reel together of her saying it, which is, Mulder, why are we here? So she always says that. She gets frustrated because, like, it gets to a point where it's like, this is ridiculous. And that's when she always says, Mulder, why are we here? Why have you dragged my ass out here for this ridiculousness that you've embroiled us in? But yeah, if ever there was an X-Files case that warrants that, this is definitely one.
Yeah, so this for me, this is the genius of this episode, because on the surface, it's a completely throwaway, forgettable episode.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're really pointing at the relationship of Mulder and Scully all the way through this. They're constantly having them confused as being a couple. They're talking
Yeah.
about, can you work closely with someone? Is there no sparks? At what point does a relationship of friendship change into a relationship of romanticism at some point? And it's exploring that through the actions of these small town people. And I think it's really cleverly done throughout the episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is an episode that is about Mulder and Scully.
Yes.
It's like, on the surface, it's about everything that's going on with these other characters, but really, it's, well, how is everything that these other characters are going through mirrored within Mulder and Scully? And so it's always pulling it back to them. So they go inside to get the client list. So they're talking to this woman, Cindy, who is also now Daryl's new flame. Basically, he just uses women for, you know, and this is the one that he's using at this current moment in time because she's helpful. She's kind of his assistant, but also lover, and yeah, she's really defensive of him. Like they imply that, you know, well, they say they're investigating him, and Scully's very derogatory of the whole idea that he's bringing the rain. So she makes it quite clear that she thinks it's all a fraud, and Cindy gets all up in arms about it, but eventually gives them the client list. So they walk away with the client list. But as they're doing all this, there is a TV on in the background, and it's the weather. There's a weatherman talking about, you know, which gives Mulder like the idea, you know, this is a meteorological kind of case. So let's go and talk to an expert in the field. The weatherman. So they go to the TV station. I get one of my favorite gags of the entire episode. Sheila greets them, and she thinks that they are a couple who won a competition with the station called the Gundersons. And they are clearly not the Gundersons. And the Gundersons come in just moments later, and Mulder just quietly says to Scully, it's like looking in a mirror. It's clearly not, because these two are like your stereotypical looking farmer hick types. But I just that line when Mulder says it's like looking in a mirror, it's just cracked me up. Great stuff. So yeah, they sit down to have a chat with the weatherman, Mr. Hart. And he says that Daryl is not causing the drought, which makes Scully go, yes, finally.
Can we just stop for a second, right? Because I love it's so it's so inconsequential, but I love it. Right, Holman, Hart, hole in this man's heart. It's nothing's hidden; it's just there. There is a hole in this man's heart. That he needs to fill. It's just
Or it's just like, it's also saying that he's a whole man because of how much love he's got in his heart and all. Yeah, there's a lot of it's very on the nose. But I love how when he starts talking about how Daryl is clearly not causing the drought, Scully's like, you can see it in her face again. Finally, we're talking to someone with some sense, and he's like, there you go, Mulder, let's go. But then Holman continues and he says, but he does seem to be causing the rain. So he's not causing the drought, but he does seem to be capable of bringing the rain, to which Scully then rolls her eyes. And he's like, oh, crap. So Mulder and Scully...
almost brings more credence, because he's like poo-pooing one aspect, but then going like, I can't explain this, but it is happening.
Yeah. And because he is the meteorology expert, it's like, okay, well, if he's got no explanation for the rain thing, then there's something worth investigating, basically. So Mulder and Scully go to a town to witness Daryl doing his thing. And what Daryl does, other than swigging the town's beer and taking the praise, is a very sophisticated Cherokee rain dance.
It is. It's so funny. I mean,
it kind of reminds me of It kind of reminds me of the Bat Dance from the 1960s opening episode of Batman. Quick, Robin, try to look inconspicuous. Yeah, it's ridiculous, basically. But it does bring the rain. So Mulder and Scully are left looking rather gobsmacked as the rain pours down upon them. Sheila has a conversation with Holman, asks him if they're still going to the reunion. Then she gets a little bit defensive on Daryl's part when she finds out that the FBI were wanting to question him. And she gets upset about that, but that gets Holman upset because he can't believe that she's still in love with him after the way that he treated her. And in this exchange, it's very clear, it's made very clear that Holman has feelings for Sheila. He's clearly in love with Sheila. And I think it's very clear at this point as to who is responsible for the weather. At least it seemed that way to me anyway. It's like, okay.
I think so. I think it becomes pretty clear.
Yeah.
This guy's a nervous and emotional wreck.
Yeah. So just after that, we get Mulder and Scully in their hotel room, and the wind has really picked up. So just after Holman has had this kind of, frustration of finding out that Sheila is still in love with Daryl, it becomes a very windy night. So windy, in fact, that it picks a cow up from a field and throws it through Mulder's hotel roof.
Great.
Yeah. I love how crap the effects work is. It's like intentionally Wizard of Oz kind of like, and there's no we don't see any tornado or anything. It's just we know it's windy because trees are blowing everywhere, but then there's just a cow in a field and it just goes boop,
and then back down. I love although it's a nothing sequence, I love the next day when Scully's in the room and the guy just goes, if you don't want a hamburger on you, you better get out. And then you hear a chainsaw firing up.
It's pretty good because it is kind of this, it does highlight the notion of, okay, well, if something like that did happen, how would they get the cow out?
Yes.
Yeah. It's things you don't think about like that. No. But they would have to get that cow out. And it's a very heavy animal. So would they bring a crane and hook the creature up and pull it out? Or actually the cheapest option would probably be just to hire a local butcher and have them cut the animal up and take it piece by piece.
But then again, at the end of this little sequence here, you get the motel person going, I've moved your stuff into your partner's room.
Yeah. Once again, calling it out. So the damage is cleaned up. Mulder is swapped into Scully's room, which, as you say, creates the notion that this woman thought that they were partners. Hart assures Mulder and Scully that it was a twister. Then Sheila rocks up and tells them it was actually her fault. We cut to a different scene in which Sheila is relaying her bad history with rough weather. And it's a really great scene. So she gives these flashbacks to different moments throughout her life, usually always involving a partner that she's had, and it going horribly wrong. And we know exactly why that is at this point, especially with Hart in the room as well. But these little moments, one in particular, I gotta say, is just phenomenal, which is on the night of her prom when a gust of wind just blows her and her boyfriend like a mile away. The thing that's so good about it is how wide the shot is and how far these two performers get pulled back. Now, clearly they're on one of them wire contraptions, where they blast someone and it's like the wire pulls them and they both get taken away. But it's not one of them where it's just like a few feet. They've really gone to town on this. This is a really big wide shot we see the school behind them, and they're in the bottom left-hand corner walking along, and they get blasted all the way to the top right-hand corner until they go off screen. And it's just, I just thought, wow, that's that's quite an impressive stunt work just for what is essentially like a 2-second shot flashback. But it's just, it's so well done. The quality of that shot alone is just so well done. Yeah, I loved it. I loved those little flashbacks that she gives when she's telling a story. But so Mulder asks her connection to Daryl. Then he tells her it's not her fault and that she isn't to blame, and she gets all emotional about that. She kisses his hand and says, "Oh, I hope I do hope you're right. I wish I could believe you." And then she goes off, and it's just then that the medic who was on the scene, who's been overhearing Sheila's story, says that Daryl's drunkenness is what caused him to crash, not the weather, which really takes Holman Hart by surprise. He's like, what? Because this is like brand new information for him. As far as he's concerned, it was the weather that caused it. And obviously, as we will learn, if we didn't know already, which we do, let's face it, Holman is the one who is causing the weather. Therefore, he feels really guilty about Daryl losing his leg. And that's why he has kept up this whole nonsense about Daryl being able to bring the rain. It's giving Daryl fame, it's giving him fortune, and he feels like that's a way of kind of paying him back for the loss of his leg. So yeah.
Because just like Holman's a whole man, Daryl's now a part man because he's lost a leg, which does lead to some hilarious comedy throughout it.
It does.
He's not. He's even without a leg, he's not a sympathetic character at all.
No, definitely not. Daryl is out on a job with Cindy when the rain suddenly stops. So literally moments after Holman has been told this information about the car crash, the rain stops. It's like this visualization of the fact that Daryl is no longer going to feed into the sympathy that he once had for Daryl.
Yeah.
So Mulder talks to Scully about why he thinks Holman Hart is manufacturing the weather. So it's kind of like reverse sad disorder. Seasonal affective disorder, something I feel I suffer from myself, to be quite honest. Mulder's like, the weather causes mood, but what if it can work the other way around? What if mood can cause the weather? So Hart practices what he wants to say to Sheila when he gets a phone call from Sheila. She tells him she wants to ask Mulder out, and it's all thanks to him, to which we instantly cut to a thunderstorm. It's like literally just like a jump cut to outside the weather station, and there's just lightning everywhere outside the weather station. It's just like a visual gag, which is, I thought it was amusing. Mulder goes to say goodbye to Holman, but has a chat with him first about his condition. He basically tells him he needs to get hold of his feelings because he's the one causing the weather. And he gets caught into this conversation of essentially giving him relationship advice. And it's at that point that Scully calls to report the weather, to say that, our flight is clearly grounded until this soupy mist clears. And Mulder's like, oh man, I just found funny. But then he tells Scully that he's giving Hart some dating advice.
Yeah. And it's the silence that does it all. And this is what we're talking about with the reactions that they have here.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And it's just the way there's that delay, and then Mulder's like, Scully? And she's like, Mulder, when was the last time you went on a date? And he just hangs up, basically. It's like, I'll talk to you later. And just hangs up. But it's what I really appreciate in these next few moments, which is something we rarely get to see, but we've seen in abundance throughout this episode, in the way that Mulder has talked to Sheila, but also particularly in the way that he handles this situation here with Holman, is just how much Mulder is in touch with the emotional, with how human he is being in this moment. Yeah, there's been many times throughout the show when he can be he is in touch with emotions. He's able to. That's why he's such a good profiler. He knows he can read people pretty well, and he often uses that to uncover facts about a case. He can be quite manipulative about it, although tastefully manipulative, not douchebag manipulative. Whereas here, he's got an opportunity to just help by, tapping into that emotional, reading these people, seeing where they are, profiling them essentially, and then using that to actually help them, almost like a psychologist, like getting them on a chair, getting them to speak about their feelings, and really help them, which is a side of Mulder that I don't think we see that often.
No.
So
he's always, but then he's, it's almost like it's not in a murky, dark place, so he doesn't have to get, he's in a little bit of light, so maybe he is attuned to certain things.
Yeah, it's just a different side to Mulder, but not out of keeping with who he is and what we know about him. It's just, oh, okay, because the circumstances are different. They're not your usual dark kind of life-threatening, like dour circumstances. They are a bit lighter. It affords Mulder the opportunity to reveal a different side of him that, has always been there. She just doesn't get much opportunity to be let out. But yeah, I appreciate it anyway. So Daryl dumps his girlfriend Cindy. So basically, the moment he realizes that the well has dried up and they're no longer going to be able to make money from the rainmaking, Cindy essentially has outlived her usefulness.
Yeah.
And he goes running straight back to Sheila, or more to the point, hopping back to Sheila, because Cindy takes his leg.
Yeah, but it's great. It's like, you can see the machinations just going on. This guy is just like, I need money. Sheila, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to break up. I need to go.
It's been good. It's been wild. But bye. Yeah. Hart can't believe that Mulder has never got it on with Scully. And Mulder sends Hart in to chat with Sheila. So there's just these nice observations here, which is... and it does raise a question. Can an attractive man and an attractive woman ever just be friends without, something bubbling away under the surface? It's hard to believe that they could, to be honest. So I think, when you got that chemistry and someone's clearly attractive, I think, Mulder has to have thought about it at some point. I do love how he ushers Hart out of the room, and as he does so, he says, "I'm perfectly fine with my relationship with Agent Scully. Thank you very much, guy." So he sends Hart in to speak with Sheila. Hart tells her that he loves her, but she takes it completely just as, a friend telling another friend that, like a platonic love. So we don't kind of hear the conversation that happens after that, but Hart comes out kind of really not too pleased. It's raining outside, and he tells Mulder that she's in love with him, with Mulder.
Yeah.
So
it's got I think the actor does great work here because he really portrays that painfully shy, like, and it's borderline almost like frustrating at points because I think we've all been to a similar scenario before, but not to the extent of it this guy has, which is a lifelong...
I don't know. I think this was me in high school. to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but this isn't high school. Like high
No,
school
no, no,
was a
no. Yeah, yeah,
number of
yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. But I can certainly relate to being this bad when I was at high school. So but the thing is, once you actually find someone and get married, you no longer have to deal with this crap.
Yeah.
I think, if I wasn't married, I probably would still be as bad as this guy. Who knows? But yeah. So Daryl is trying to get back. Couldn't read my own writing there. There you go. So Daryl is trying to get back with Sheila, and he rocks up without his leg. Mulder helps her out because he's been very forceful with her. Mulder helps her out, so she kisses him. And it's at that moment that Hart comes walking around the corner and sees them kissing. Though it's quite clear Mulder does not want any part of this because his body language is like, no, get me off.
Yeah.
Then Mulder sees the weather monitor. He looks inside and he's like, Scully, do you have any understanding of this equipment? And but basically it means the weather has just gone to DEFCON.
It's like a big red swirl that kind of matches the big red swirl on his lips as well.
Yeah.
Chaos.
And also matches the big red swirl inside Holman's heart right now. So
yeah.
So Mulder and Scully go to the reunion. Scully's like, are you sure he's going to be here? And he's like, if she's here, he'll be here. And it turns out he is. So they find Holman and they tell him that he's got to make it stop. And Sheila arrives and asks Mulder to dance. And Scully, being rather quick-witted, quick-thinking, she said, Holman was actually just saying that he would like to dance. So Holman kind of takes that bait and Sheila takes the bait. So they go off to dance, and just before they go through the door, Mulder's like, tell her, Holman. So, and I like that this gets picked up on, because normally in a TV show like that, somebody would, it's like that Friends thing, when the whole cast are all sat in the coffee shop. Was it Central Perk? They're always sat in Central Perk, and they're literally like just couches away from each other, and two people will say something on the couch on one side, and they'll say it in quite audible fashion, but we're supposed to believe that the people on the other side of the couch haven't heard it because they weren't in the close-up shot. So it's kind of like that thing, this kind of line is like one of those lines that wouldn't get heard by the Sheila character, and yet here it does, which I really appreciate. So we go to the dance floor, and Sheila says, "What was that Mulder was just talking about? Tell me what." And that's when Holman pours out his heart and tells Sheila that he doesn't just love her, he's in love with her. Yeah. And Sheila walks away. just leaves him to it. So Scully goes after her, follows her into a bathroom stall, and it's at that point that Daryl arrives, and Cindy apparently took his leg.
Yeah.
And
so he goes for Mulder.
Yeah, takes a few swings at Mulder with his.
Which I liked, because I felt like this was a fair fight. You had a crippled man in Mulder, so I wasn't sure. It could have went anywhere.
It could have gone either way, couldn't it? Really, yeah. So, I'm just thinking about Krychek now with his plastic arm. It's like, the only person Mulder's ever able to beat in a fight is a cripple.
And it's not even that; it's the fact that he's been in multiple fights with people who are missing appendages. It seems to be his target audience.
Oh, good grief. So we cut back to the bathroom stall, and we now see Scully being all sentimental and kind of Dr. Phil about it all.
Yeah.
And she's being all softly spoken, really gentle about it. And she's telling Sheila that more often than not, some of the most long-lasting, effective relationships, are born out of what are first, friendships. It's like where people start to see each other in a different light, and that's why it becomes such a lasting relationship. And then it's at that point that the storm drains start overflowing, and they're like, crap, let's get the hell out of here. So
Yeah.
they run back into where the reunion is. Daryl knocked out on the floor due to like an electric shock. And Sheila talks to Holman, says that
Yeah.
his condition is the most romantic thing she's ever heard. Because she's like, so when this happened, that was you. And when that happened, that was you. All because you love me? And he's like, yes. And she's like, that's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. And then they kiss. And as they kiss, there's literal sparks behind them. Everything turns slow motion. And I love the shot. It's perfectly composed. I love the cinematography on it, the color, the slow motion, the sparks, that just the framing. It's just a really nice shot that conveys the emotion of everything that's going on in a really kind of, again, on the nose kind of way, but I feel like the episode earns it because...
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's cheesy and it's familiar and it's all kind of tropey, but the episode has built to this, and even the electrical fault is explained. It's not like everything. Yeah, they set it up really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they kiss, the lights come back on, everything starts coming on again. I'm not entirely sure why it would, because if the weather has kicked out the power, if the weather's kicked out the power, then he doesn't have control over that. So he may have brought the weather back, but that doesn't mean he can bring the power back on. So that doesn't make much sense to me. But whatever, it's a nice visual way of saying that everything's rosy again. But Daryl shows that he's got a bit of humanity and actually apologizes to Cindy, which is...
No. One option has one door has closed, and he needs to go back to the one that's slightly ajar, and he needs his leg. So...
All right, I'll give you that. I was trying to be a glass half full kind of guy, but clearly you are the glass half empty. So
I think in Daryl it would be the bottle of beer half full. No.
So everyone seems to be kissing on the dance floor. Everyone, that is, except Mulder and Scully. Oh, there was a nice moment as well, by the way, that we skipped that I just remembered, which is when earlier on, when so it was when Holman went to tell Sheila just before she walked off, and Mulder and Scully were observing. But everyone was on the dance floor and there's some music. And Mulder and Scully, whilst talking to each other, almost unaware that they were even doing it, are rocking from side to side. Oh, did you not notice that? It's like they were dancing to the music, but they were just like gently rocking from side to side as they were watching Holman and Sheila. And it was just funny. But then when Sheila walks off, they suddenly just stop rocking and get down to business again. But it was just a nice visual touch, which I found really amusing. But so Mulder asks Holman, how did it go? And he says, you should try it sometime, obviously inferring that you should make a move on Scully. It's about time you made a move on Scully,
because now he's suddenly the master of love.
yeah he's got it down. So we quickly get like just a final shot at the end. It's something we don't often get on the X-Files, which is a 1 year later little shot. Yep. And it's Sheila nursing a newborn baby. And outside, it looks like Kansas in The Wizard of Oz. Everything's golden. There's rainbows. It's just like, it's Smallville. In Smallville, whenever they're in the barn and they're looking out and you've got those ridiculous painted sunsets that just look way too glorious. It's like that.
Yeah, it's very false and manufactured. Yeah. And I like this because it's showing like a very happy, content baby. You get rolling fields and a rainbow. And as a parent, I'm thinking, those tantrums are going to be havoc on the weather. Because I think it's alluding to the fact that the baby's now weather controlling, is it?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And who wants an angry 2-year-old that can control the weather?
I think he was just trying to show us that it was a happy ending for Holman and Sheila. Ending. Yeah. So, wrap up, thoughts, score, go.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's an almost forgettable episode, but it's all the relationship stuff that comes into it that makes it really interesting and fun, because it's got Mulder and Scully, and all the townspeople are almost like the viewers. Are they? Are they not? Will they do it? It's acknowledging a lot of questions that the viewers have had throughout the years and setting up a really fun way. And for the most part, a lot of people in this town, they're really nice. Like, there's no real antagonists. Sure, Daryl's a douchebag, but he's just a douchebag. There's no real malice there because he just doesn't think about anybody else, which is nice. It's an episode without any antagonists, which is kind of unusual. And it's fun, and it's funny moments, and it's got great performances, particularly when there's no dialogue, which I think are some of the great bits, showing the relationship between the characters. All in all, I'd say for me, it's probably a 4 out of 5, I think.
Yeah. See, I wrote a 4, so on my notes I've got 4 out of 5. As we were talking about it, I kind of wanted to bump it up to a 4.5 out of 5. And I'm kind of, I find it shocking that I didn't remember this one. I'm shocked by how my memories of it were actually quite down or quite negative.
I don't think it's one that, unless you're talking about it, you realise all the nuances it had. Because there was things that I noticed, and then there's things that you've highlighted, and just talking about it has elevated it in my mind as well.
Yeah. I'm actually going to give it a 4.5, because I think if this episode had have appeared in, say, season 3, 4, or 5, like somewhere in the middle of the season amongst the usual darker episodes, I think it would have made much more of an impact. It would be one of those episodes that you remember, like a Darren Morgan episode or like a funny Vince Gilligan episode. I just think because it's sandwiched between all of these, because it's at the arse end of all these humorous episodes, I think I'd just gotten to the point as a fan where I'm like, okay, yeah, these episodes are good, but I'm getting a bit cross that my show is being hijacked by what is essentially becoming like a Buffy kind of, comedy centric thing.
It can't stand out in amongst a lot of episodes that are similar to it. Like, it just can't, but it should.
Yeah, it should. So, like, in isolation, when you watch it on its own and you're reviewing it, you realise how good it is. Unfortunately, as I say, it's on the back end of all those comedy episodes. So I am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I also think it continues what is essentially the overarching theme, or the thing that they're trying to deal with in this season. Like season 5, it was all about Mulder. Well, it was all about the characters finding their faith again. It was about Mulder finding his faith in the supernatural. It was about Scully finding her faith in Catholicism. And I think this one, the what seems to be the overarching thing is the relationship between Mulder and Scully. Is looking at it in new ways. It's always been platonic. It's always been just about the friendship. And I think each episode we've had so far seems to touch on an element of the relationship where it's like, could there be more? Should there be more?
Yeah.
Should they see each other in a way that they haven't done before? And I think that seems to be the thing they're exploring most throughout this season so far. So I really liked it. It was a surprise, real big surprise for me, coming off the back of last week where I couldn't really remember anything about it, and having watched it and thinking, you know what, that's actually a damn good episode.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the next episode, SR819.
Okay, so this is a serious episode. Okay, it's also a mythology episode. We also get the return of a particular character, return of a few particular characters actually. So and it's a Skinner-centric episode.
Interesting.
There you go.
I feel like we need that. We need to have a series episode. We need a mythology episode, so it feels as if it's coming at the right time, or maybe it should have been a couple of episodes before. But that sounds interesting. And do you remember it being a good episode, a bad episode?
See, here's the thing. See, my memories are all playing tricks on me now with the way this is going. I always remember liking it. I always remember
Mm.
thinking it's good. So, I think part of that is because of the return of a particular character. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe I gave it too much credit because it came after all this lightheartedness.
Yeah,
So, but we'll see.
we'll see. We will
We'll
see
see.
indeed.
We will
Yeah.
see.
So as always, thank you for joining us on YouTube or whichever podcast service you use. If you want to support us, you could help like or review our podcast or video because it really helps people discover our little podcast. And we'll see you next week for SR
819.
819.
SR 819. Yeah.
There we are.
Bye.